First story. I ditched my son's graduation to attend his school bully's graduation. She dated him as a challenge, made false accusations, and leaked his personal information to humiliate him. My son sulked and refused to attend dinner with me, so I sent him away and gave his graduation gift and his room to his bully as punishment. Now my ungrateful son has abandoned me. When my son, Jason, was in middle school, he became close with a girl named Leela. She came from a rough home. She didn't speak much about it back then, but it was clear early on that things weren't good. She'd get dropped off late, sometimes not picked up at all, and would stay quiet around adults. By the time they started high school, they were dating. Leela was at our house constantly. She spent weekends with us, came on family vacations, and joined us for every birthday and holiday dinner. I really liked her. She was always polite and helpful, never asked for anything, and clearly felt comfortable here. Over time, I saw her less as my son's girlfriend and more like another kid I was responsible for. I knew things were bad at home, and I didn't mind stepping up. Looking back now, I realize I may not have seen everything clearly. Jason and Leela stayed together all through high school. I thought they were solid. But senior year, everything fell apart fast. Right around Christmas break, Jason sat me down and told me that he and Leela had broken up, and that he was now seeing another girl from their friend group. What shocked me more was when he casually mentioned that Leela was supposed to move in with us after graduation, something we had all discussed, but that it was no longer his problem. That felt cold to me. I asked if she had another place lined up, and he just shrugged and said, "She'll figure it out." I told him that wasn't good enough. He got upset and said she was a lot, that she was always needy, and that being with her had drained him for years. I didn't understand where this was coming from. When I pushed, Jason finally told me his side, the one I had never seen. He said Leela had been using him for years, that she dated him partly as a way to win a bet among her old friend group, and she had told people that he was an easy target because he was soft-spoken and safe. He said she used to laugh with others behind his back, shared private things he had told her in confidence, and even leaked stuff to classmates that got him bullied sophomore year. He said he caught her laughing at memes people made about him once, sitting with the same kids who used to torment him. According to him, when he confronted her, she just told him he was being dramatic and tried to brush it all under the rug. She said, "You're overthinking. We're fine. Don't throw this away over something petty." He didn't forgive her. He said that's when he emotionally checked out. He stayed with her out of guilt because she had nowhere to go, but mentally he was done. By the time they officially broke up, he had already been told by someone in Leela's group that she was dating him for comfort, and had never seen him as someone she truly respected. That friend who he's now dating, which I'll get to, apparently told him more than he wanted to know. At the time, though, I still felt that we owed her some stability. She had nobody, and I believe teenagers made mistakes. I figured maybe she was scared, trying to fit in, and didn't know how else to deal with things. She had spent years being nice to me, helping around the house, and acting like part of the family. I couldn't turn her away. So I told Jason that she could still stay with us until the fall, even if he didn't like it. He was furious. He said I was choosing her over him. I told him it wasn't about sides, it was about not kicking someone out into the street. He refused to live under the same roof as her, so he went to stay with his dad for the summer. They barely spoke. That was over 4 years ago. Since then, I've kept in touch with Leela. Not constantly, but enough to know she worked hard in college, held down part-time jobs, and still didn't have much of a support system. She sent me birthday texts every year, thanked me often for letting her stay that summer, and would sometimes ask me how Jason was doing. She never spoke badly about him. Fast forward to last year, she told me she was graduating and asked if I could attend. She didn't have anyone coming. I didn't hesitate. I said, of course. I made travel plans, booked the hotel, everything. Then, a few weeks later, Jason calls to tell me about his graduation plans. Apparently, his school moved their date around because of some scheduling issue, and it was now on the same weekend as Leela's. I told him that I had already committed to Leela's graduation and didn't think it would be right to cancel, since she had nobody else showing up. That's when it all blew up again. Jason had no idea I was still in contact with Leela. He was stunned and angry. He asked how I could still talk to someone who used and humiliated him. I told him I didn't know all the details of their relationship, but from what I saw, she was a lonely kid in a bad situation who needed kindness. He said that's exactly the problem, that I always saw her as a victim and him as the strong one who could handle anything. I said that's not true, But he didn't believe me. I reminded him that he'd have plenty of support at his graduation. His dad and stepmom were going. His aunt. 2 sets of grandparents. Even some of his younger cousins were making the trip. Leela would have no one. I also told him I'd take him out to dinner the day after any restaurant he wanted, with anyone else he wanted to invite. I tried to make it up to him. He was polite about it on the phone but cold. I knew he wasn't really okay with it. We had dinner like planned. But a few hours before we were supposed to meet, he called and said he didn't feel up to it. He said he had a headache and didn't want to sit through something forced. I told him it didn't have to be forced, we could just eat and talk, but he turned it down again. I offered to reschedule. He said he'd think about it. He never did. I'll be honest, I was upset. I had set that money aside weeks in advance. I even canceled something else to make the dinner happen. It felt like I was constantly the one reaching out, making the effort, and still being held at arm's length. I understood why he was mad, but he was 22. At some point, I expected him to have a real conversation, not just cold shoulders and short texts. That same week, Leela called to thank me again for showing up to her graduation. She said it meant a lot that I came, and having even one person in the stands changed the entire day for her. She didn't ask for anything. But I knew she didn't have plans after. No trip, no big dinner, no celebration. So, I took the money I'd saved for Jason's graduation and gave it to Leela. Not in a showy way, just told her to use it on herself. Take a small trip before starting work, or save it if she needed it. I figured it was better than letting it sit while I kept waiting on a maybe. Later, I regretted it, not because I thought Leela didn't deserve it, but because I knew it would only make things worse if Jason ever found out. And he did. A few months later, it came up. Leela had gone on a short trip to the coast and tagged my profile and thanked me for helping her. Jason put it together right away. I was asked if I gave her the money meant for him. I didn't lie. I told him the truth. He didn't yell, just said, "Right, makes sense." Since then, things have gone further downhill. He replies to messages late, skips family gatherings unless his dad's side is hosting, and keeps me at a distance. I've apologized more than once. I told him I never meant to pick sides. I just wanted to do what felt right at the time. He says he's heard it all before. He thinks I chose a girl who betrayed him over my own son. I've tried explaining that I saw Leela as a hurt kid who was immature, not malicious. Yes, she acted selfishly, and yes, I believe she hurt him. But I also think she was dealing with her own mess and didn't know how to handle anything better at 17. Maybe that makes me naive. But I saw someone who had no one, and I couldn't bring myself to close the door on her. Jason still sees her as someone who humiliated him. He holds on to how she laughed with the same people who bullied him, how she dismissed his pain when he confronted her, and how quickly she shifted the blame onto him. From his point of view, I looked the other way while he was being humiliated by someone living in our home. I've thought about it from every angle. I still don't know if I handled it all wrong. Maybe I should have cut off Leela when they broke up. Maybe I should have made Jason's graduation the priority, no matter how much support he already had. Maybe giving her that money was a step too far. I just didn't want to become one more adult who turned away from a kid the second they stopped being convenient. The worst part is not knowing if this will ever really be fixed. I miss my son, we talk, but it's not the same. There's a gap that wasn't there before. Sometimes I wonder if it'll always be this way, if that one decision, going to someone else's graduation instead of his, is the line he'll never forgive me for crossing. So here I am. Ada for choosing to support someone who had no one, even if it meant not showing up for my own son's big day. Comments. Comment 1. You told your son that you'd rather be at some other kid's graduation than his. It doesn't matter how you sugarcoat it. That's how it landed. You might think you were doing the kind thing, but what your son heard is that some ex-girlfriend, who he says mistreated him, mattered more on one of the biggest days of his life. This wasn't about some forgotten birthday or missed call. This was the culmination of years of him watching you prioritize her comfort over his pain. He told you she betrayed him. He told you how much it hurt. And instead of backing him, you doubled down on, she was just a kid. So was he. YTA. And it's wild that you still seem surprised your relationship with him hasn't recovered. Comment 2. You didn't just go to her graduation. That was the end of a long string of choices where you consistently chose this girl over your own son. He told you she hurt him. You let her live in the house anyway. He said he wasn't comfortable. You told him to suck it up or leave, so he left. Then years later, you skipped his graduation and gave his dinner money to her. That's not Just compassion. That's a pattern. 4 years might feel like a long time to you, but to him? That's a quarter of his life where you sent a very clear message. She matters more. I don't even think you hate your son. I think you got attached to her and tried to justify it all in your head. But from his perspective, this wasn't about who was at his graduation. This was about realizing his mom would go all out for someone who laughed while he got bullied, and then call him entitled for not forgiving her. Hard YTA. No wonder he doesn't trust you anymore. Comment 3. I'm gonna get slammed for this, but nah. I've been in situations where someone's gone no contact with family after graduation and had zero support. Watching them walk that stage alone while everyone else is surrounded by people who love them. That's hard to forget. You made a promise to Leela, and you kept it. I do think you dropped the ball by not telling your son you were still in touch with her. That's the one thing I really wish you'd done differently. But people saying you tossed your son aside are ignoring that you offered him the full next day to celebrate. That matters too. He had a crowd. She had nobody. It's a complicated mess. But I don't think being compassionate to a girl you once took in makes you some monster. And your son. Yeah, I get his pain. But I also think there's a piece of him that's still pissed you didn't back his cold exit from someone he once cared about. And that might say more about him than you. Comment 4. She didn't cheat on him. Sure. But she dated him like he was a comfort pillow, used him, leaked his private SHT, and laughed while others tore him down. Then she played the "you're overreacting" card when he confronted her. That's messed up. You might have seen a struggling girl, but your son saw someone who absolutely knew what she was doing and didn't give a damn about the damage until it blew up in her face. He came to you, probably hoping you'd back him. Instead, you told him to suck it up so she wouldn't be homeless. Then, years later, you skipped his day to cheer for her and handed her money meant for him. You didn't just help her, you protected the one person who made your son feel small and alone in his own home. I hope she was worth it, because from where I'm sitting, that's the moment you lost him. Update. After reading the responses to my original post, I need to clarify a few things because most of you completely missed what I was trying to say. People keep calling me cold, saying I chose someone else over my son. That's a hell of a thing to accuse a mother of. You don't know what it's like to watch someone completely alone, abandoned by their family at 18, while your own kid acts like they're trash to be tossed aside. Yes, I went to Leela's graduation. I kept in contact with her. Yes, I gave her the money when my son refused to show up. But people keep acting like I gave Leela a house, a college fund, and a crown. All I did was be decent to someone I once considered family. And by the way, she is doing well now. College degree, full-time job, decent apartment. People here were acting like she was some manipulative monster. If I hadn't stepped in, I honestly don't know where she would have ended up. But now, she's stable, she's functioning, and I had a hand in that. So if you're still angry about what I did 4 years ago, fine. But I don't regret helping her. Leela didn't coast off me, she went through hell and figured her life out. If anything, Jason should be proud that someone from his past turned things around. Now on to the actual update. A few weeks ago, my sister hosted a big family dinner at her place. Jason and his girlfriend, Natalie, came. I haven't seen them both in the same room with me in nearly a year. I wasn't going to bring up old stuff, I genuinely wanted to let things settle. But by dessert, things were cold. Jason barely made eye contact, and Natalie kept her distance too. I tried breaking the silence and mentioned I'd heard from Leela recently. Jason immediately got up to leave, saying he wasn't doing this again. Before he made it to the door, I said maybe it was time to stop acting like a victim when he had support, a girlfriend, family, everything Leela never had. I know I shouldn't have said it. I was frustrated. I thought if I made him see the big picture, he'd finally let go of the grudge. He stopped, turned around, and then Natalie, of all people, stepped in. She told me I didn't know half of what happened. That the things Jason told me back then were the cleaned-up version. She said Leela didn't just laugh behind his back. She helped pass around private texts Jason had sent her about his anxiety, knowing full well people were using them to humiliate him at school. She said Leela spread a rumor about Jason's sexuality as a joke. And when Jason confronted her senior year, she told him no one would believe him if he tried to expose her. She also said I made things worse. That I rehomed someone who made their lives hell and still defended her like she was my own daughter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at Jason. He didn't deny any of it. He just stood there and said, "Now you know." It hit me then that everything I thought I understood was only part of the picture, and I still defended Leela. I told Jason I didn't know. That if I'd known she went that far, I wouldn't have let her stay. But then Natalie asked, if he hadn't told you just now, would you have ever let her go? And I didn't have an answer. Then I made things worse. I said Leela was just a scared girl. That teenagers do horrible things sometimes. That Jason turned out fine, didn't he? That maybe it wasn't as malicious as they thought. He didn't say another word. Just grabbed his coat, told my sister thanks, and walked out. Natalie followed. I tried to stop them. Jason looked at me like I was nothing. I've never seen that look from him before. I didn't even make it home before the next blow landed. That night, I got a message from him. A photo of him and Natalie. She had an engagement ring on. They're getting married next spring. No note. No follow-up message. Just the picture. I called. He didn't pick up. I texted. Nothing. The next morning, I reached out to my ex-husband. Told him congratulations. Then he asked if he knew about the engagement. He did. I asked if Jason had said anything about including me. He got quiet. Then he said, he doesn't want you involved. He said Jason doesn't plan on inviting me to the wedding. No role. No mother-son dance. No toast. Just a seat maybe. And even that, he said, isn't guaranteed. Jason said he doesn't want to spend the happiest day of his life looking at someone who made excuses for the worst years of his. I was stunned. This wasn't just a bad phase. This was permanent. I tried talking to his aunt. She said she understood both sides, but thought I should give him space. She said, you're still acting like he's overreacting, but you don't get to tell someone how long their pain should last. I broke down that night. I kept reading the message over and over. That photo. Natalie's smile. His arm around her. And the complete absence of me. A few days later, I sent Jason a letter. I couldn't let things sit like that. I tried to explain everything, how I didn't know how deep it went, how I thought I was helping someone in need. I told him I missed him. That I still think about him as a kid, when he used to leave notes in my lunchbox, or ask me to stay up late to talk. I told him I never stopped loving him. That I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt him. He didn't reply. I talked to his dad again. Asked him to say something. To tell Jason I'm still trying. His dad said, he knows. He just doesn't care anymore. And the truth is, I'm scared. I keep imagining holidays without him. Grandkids I might never meet. Weddings I might not attend. I thought time would fix it. But time just made it real. I thought my son would see I was trying to be a good person. That he'd understand why I made the choices I did. But maybe trying to do the right thing for someone else doesn't mean much when your own kid feels like you failed him. I still don't know how to fix it. But I know I want to. I don't want to miss his wedding. I don't want to be the kind of mum people whisper about when family photos get taken. I want to be there. I want to be in his life and his future family's life. I'm trying to reach out, but I'm running out of people willing to pass the message along. He said I chose Leela. Maybe I did. Maybe I thought being a decent person mattered more than loyalty in that moment. But the girl I tried to protect is gone now, and the son I tried to keep. I don't know if he's coming back. If anyone has advice, I'm open to hearing it. Even the hard stuff. Just please don't tell me I didn't love my son. I did. I do. I just might have loved someone else in the way he needed me to love him. And now I might not get a second chance. Comments. Comment 1. Reading this update was rough because you keep circling the same mistake and refusing to sit in it. You heard, directly, that Leela spread rumors, shared private messages, and laughed while your kid was getting torn apart. And even after hearing that, you still slid back into explaining her behavior like it was a teenage phase that didn't permanently mess him up. You don't seem to get that the reason he walked out wasn't the dinner table moment. It was realizing he'd never be believed by the one person who was supposed to have his back no matter what. And then the engagement text? That wasn't petty. That was him saying, you don't get access to my life anymore. If you keep framing this as a misunderstanding instead of a choice you kept making, there's no path forward. Comment 2. Let's see. You ignored your son's pain, defended his ex, kept tabs on her for years, funded her, then tried to guilt him at a dinner table after knowing the full story. And you're shocked he's excluding you from the wedding. You didn't lose a son. You gave him away every time you picked the girl who humiliated him and called it compassion. And now you're mad the kid stopped asking you to show up. If being included really mattered that much, maybe you should have started by choosing him when it actually cost you something. Comment 3. Everything you describe shows you still want to be. Right. More than present. You talked to his girlfriend like she was misinformation instead of the person he trusts most. You pushed his dad and family to advocate for you instead of stepping back when he asked. You wrote a letter explaining yourself instead of owning how badly this hit him. From his side, it probably looks like you're still trying to win an argument he never wanted to be in. He told you years ago that girl hurt him. You protected her anyway. Now he's protecting himself. If you keep reaching out the same way, the silence is only going to get louder. Comment 4. There's something deeply uncomfortable about how you keep citing Leela's current stability as evidence you were justified. Like her diploma or paycheck somehow balances out your son being betrayed and humiliated under your roof. Her success doesn't undo what she did, and it certainly doesn't undo how you ignored your son's pain for years. Let's break this down. Your son told you he was hurt. You believed your version of events more than his. He distanced himself. You kept contacting the source of his pain. He made peace with cutting ties. You're only shaken now because you assumed you'd be forgiven eventually. But forgiveness requires accountability. Instead of accountability, you've sent letters explaining your feelings, rallied extended family to your side, and turned the engagement into a referendum on your worth as a mother. At no point did you stop and ask what exactly it would take to make it right. Because I think you know. It would take letting go of Leela, owning the damage fully, and accepting that forgiveness might not come. That's a hard pill. But if you can't swallow it, you're not ready for a real relationship with your son anyway. Update. I'm exhausted. I thought if I kept trying calmly, eventually Jason would see that this situation has gone completely out of proportion. Instead, it feels like every attempt I make just pushes me further out. After the family dinner, where Natalie shared what she claimed were the full details about Leela, there was radio silence. Weeks went by. I tried not to reach out. I really did. But then my birthday came and went with nothing from Jason. That stung more than I want to admit. So when his birthday came up a month later, I thought it might be a reasonable excuse to try to see him in person. I suggested coffee. He said he could do 20 minutes, and that Natalie would come too. We met at a cafe near his apartment. I went in with the intention of being neutral, but it became obvious very quickly that Natalie wasn't there just for support. She positioned herself between us physically and emotionally. Jason barely spoke unless she looked at him first. At one point I said I was worried he was holding on to things that happened as a teenager and letting them shape his entire adult relationship with me. Natalie jumped in and said therapy had helped him understand exactly what happened and why distance was healthier. That word alone set me off. I asked what kind of therapist would encourage someone to discard their mother instead of working through issues. Jason said quietly that the therapist didn't encourage anything, that he reached his own conclusions. That was the moment I realized I was being shut down permanently. Anything I said was being filtered through Natalie, and I do believe she reinforces this version of events because it benefits her. I left the meeting feeling like I just sat in on my own replacement. A few weeks later, I received a wedding registry link through a cousin. No direct message. No explanation. Just a link. I took that as a sign I was still included on some level. I sent Jason an engagement gift with a handwritten note. I didn't mention Leela. I didn't defend myself. I wrote that I loved him, that I was proud of him, and that I hoped we could find our way back to each other. The gift was returned unopened a week later. That broke something in me. After that, I made what I admit may not have been my best decision. I reached out to Natalie directly and asked if she'd meet me one-on-one. I said I wanted peace and clarity. She agreed, but the meeting was a waste. She told me flat out that Jason was happier without me in his daily life, and that my insistence on defending Leela made her nervous about having me around any future children. She framed everything like concern, but it was clearly a warning. I told her she didn't get to decide whether I was part of my son's life. She said she wasn't deciding anything. Jason already had. After that conversation, Jason texted me, telling me not to contact Natalie again. That if I had something to say, it should be to him. I took him at his word. So I tried. I sent him a message saying I was willing to do counseling together, but that I thought he also needed to address how much influence Natalie has over his decisions. That suggestion did not land well. He replied that he's been in therapy for years, that cutting contact with me was something he arrived at slowly, and that blaming his wife was a pattern he was done tolerating. At that point, I felt like I was watching my own life being rewritten by other people. Not long after that, I went to his gym. I won't pretend it was accidental that I showed up there. I wasn't stalking him. I didn't follow him. I just wanted to talk face to face without Natalie present, like we used to. When he saw me, His face dropped immediately. I asked if we could talk outside for a minute. He said no. I followed him to the locker room entrance and told him I was his mother and deserved 5 minutes. He turned around and said very calmly that I needed to leave, and that if I didn't, he would call the police. Hearing that from my own son felt unreal. I left, but I cried the entire drive home. After that, I tried one last approach. I wrote a long letter. I laid out everything I was feeling, including my fears. I told him I wanted to be there for his milestones, for holidays, for future kids. I told him I imagined teaching his children family traditions, birthdays, all of it. I admitted I might have been wrong about some things, but I also said I felt he was holding on to anger past its usefulness. I thought that kind of honesty mattered. He never responded. Then the wedding happened. I didn't find out until it was already over. I saw photos online. He looked happy. Natalie looked happy. There were pictures of his father, his stepmother, his grandparents, and his cousins. I wasn't in a single frame. It was like I never existed. I won't lie, that destroyed me. After that, I reached out to my ex-husband and some extended family again. I asked if anyone could talk sense into him, if anyone could get him to reconsider at least limited contact. Most declined. A few told me gently that I needed to stop pushing. One aunt said Jason felt constantly pressured to validate my feelings, instead of being allowed to have his own. I don't understand how wanting a relationship with my son became something ugly. I don't know what else to do. I've apologized. I've explained. I've given space. I've reached out. I've stayed quiet. Nothing seems good enough. I feel like I'm expected to just accept that my role in my son's life is over and stop asking questions. I don't think that's fair. At some point, doesn't accountability have to go both ways? Doesn't moving forward actually require moving on, instead of freezing time around past pain? I'm genuinely asking. Because right now, it feels like I lost my son, not over one decision, but because I refuse to see things exactly the way he and his wife want me to see them. And I don't know how to live with that. If anyone has advice on how to get through to someone who refuses to hear anything except complete agreement, I'm open. I don't want this to be the rest of my life. Comments. Comment 1. You're chasing a ghost of a relationship that doesn't exist anymore. The person you're writing about, the son who sends you pictures of himself at 5 and draws hearts around your name, hasn't been in this situation for years. The adult he became. That man set his limits a long time ago. You just refuse to accept them. You say you've apologized and explained, but you still talk like this is a misunderstanding instead of a reckoning. You don't trust his choices. You see his wife as an obstacle. You dismiss therapy as if it's a trick. And you're surprised when he treats your actions like a threat to his peace. This isn't about Natalie or Leela. This is about you refusing to believe that your son can make adult decisions that don't center your comfort. The reason none of your efforts are landing, because you keep saying you're open while acting like his boundaries are temporary obstacles you can wear down. He's already moved on. You're the only one standing still. Comment 2. You stalked your son at the gym. I know you don't see it that way, but that's how it reads. You knew he didn't want contact, and you still showed up where he thought he had privacy. That's the point where most people stop reading and go, yeah, this crossed a line. The bigger issue, though, is how you've built this entire situation into a fight to prove yourself right. It's not about reconnecting. It's about making him admit that he overreacted. Every apology you send has strings. You say sorry, but then follow it with, you're letting Natalie influence you, or you've done enough therapy. That's not apologizing. That's just trying to win. You're not going to get him back by proving a point. And dragging in every cousin, aunt, and his dad just makes it worse. From his view, you're forcing your way into his life when he already told you what he needs. If you can't respect that, he's going to keep cutting deeper. Let go of the fantasy version of your son. Start listening to the one who exists right now. Comment 3. You're stuck in a loop where you treat every failed attempt at reconciliation as proof that your son is closed off, instead of asking what those failures reveal about your approach. You keep pushing for access without actually demonstrating understanding. I want to be part of your life means nothing if the person you're speaking to doesn't feel safe around you emotionally. You mention therapy like it's a flaw in his logic, instead of a tool that helped him identify harmful dynamics. That alone tells me you haven't done your own work. You want to be seen as the mom who did her best, who meant well, who was taken out of context, but the moment he names the harm, you shift into justifying it. You can't force healing through pressure. And frankly, the more you show up uninvited or send letters with future fantasies, the more you reinforce why distance is the only thing giving him peace. If you really want back in, you need to ask yourself if you're ready to be uncomfortable. Not temporarily, but consistently. That's where reconciliation begins. Not with flowers, not with tears, and definitely not with registry gifts. Second story. My girlfriend said our attractive mutual friend should have dated her instead of me, and now claims she was joking to see my reaction. For context, this girl and I have known each other for 6 months, dating for 1, as she was in a committed relationship before. We met at the gym, we practiced the same sport, and became friends. When we got closer as friends, she decided to end things with her ex, and I made my move before that. I kept all interactions to friend stuff. Before we started dating, we made clear that we were looking for something serious. Lately, a mutual friend of ours, whom she told me months ago she finds attractive, also because he's very successful in our sport, started going out with another girl we know that attends the same gym. When I told her, she initially sounded happy for him. But then, over text, she said, "Anyway, it's not fair. I wanted him. You could have gotten with her." I was quite shocked and answered, "What kind of sentence is that to say?" And then told her that she was still on time to try and get with him. She then switched subjects, and when she realized I wasn't having it, she said she was just joking, and that, "You know I only want you." And when I said I didn't feel like this was a thing to joke about, she said she didn't mean to hurt me, and that she was really sorry about it. I then tried to work my reasoning out with her by trying to reverse roles and asking her how she would have felt. And she said that if she knew I was joking, she would have taken it lightly. She later tried to reassure me and said she was sorry again. Last night, I had trouble sleeping and went to the gym in the morning. I paid very little attention to her. We have agreed not to bring relationship stuff into the gym, and she gave me my space. Later, we spoke in the car about it again. She cried and said she felt like she gave me enough security and trust via her actions during this month of dating, so that a joke such as this could be said without anyone getting hurt. And I explained my feelings in more detail. I told her that unfortunately I have already experienced stuff of a similar fashion in my past with other people. So I'm particularly sensitive about topics like this one. And I find it difficult to recognize clearly what is bothering me because of my trauma and what is a clear issue in the relationship. This doesn't change the fact that what she did was wrong, but I asked her to be extra gentle and patient with my reaction to it. She agreed and said again that she was sorry, that she wants me to feel safe and peaceful. She then asked me if I needed some time alone, and I said yes. I feel like the way she handled the discussion was appropriate, and I also think she was truly sorry about it. But somehow I can't shake this gut feeling of hurt. Maybe I just need a little more time. TLDR. The girl 22F, I'm 27M dating jokingly said our mutual friend 26M should have gotten with her instead of me, and it hurt me. She apologized, but I'm not sure about how I feel. Comments. Comment 1. Yeah, definitely one of those "I'm only joking because I was being a little bit serious, and you took it badly" moments. Comment 2. Yes, time to look for something else. Don't waste your time with this one. OP. Why then get with me if he was still single when she dumped her ex? Comment 3. He probably doesn't want her. Comment 4. Dude. She was in a committed relationship that she ended because she dated you for a few months, and then she pulled out this kind of talk 1 month into your relationship. I don't think she understands what commitment means or respect for one's partner. If you're just looking for a fun, casual relationship to pass the time with, then sure, keep dating her and enjoying it while it lasts, because I don't think it will be long before some other attractive guy pulls her interest. But if you're actually looking for a life partner, I think you have enough data on her at this point to know she's not the one. Comment 5. That's 100% exactly the right thing to say right there. OP. She didn't end it specifically to get with me. If that is what you're implying, if you're not, I mean no offense. I waited for her to end it on her own without exposing my romantic interest, to be sure that she genuinely wasn't jumping ships. Comment 6. 1 month after a serious relationship, she started another one. A month after that, she said she preferred a good-looking guy and wished she was with him instead of you. Sounds like a serial monogamist. Don't bring it up again. It's still early, so your relationship will fail if you do. You seem determined to stay with her, but also to argue on her behalf to everyone here. What most people in the post are trying to convey to you is that they don't think this relationship will work in the long term. In the short term, she's going to stay with you because she's afraid of being alone. She was just in a long-term relationship and knows how to act for the most part. And after only a month, she has spent a lot of time assuaging you on this matter. But you're here because you were still upset. This story reads like neither person is super happy or ready to be in a relationship. Update. Yesterday, we had an open conversation about it, because I felt like there were some things left unsaid. We talked for hours, and we both opened up about our past and what was going on in our heads during these events. To sum it up, the reason behind her saying that joke, she said she wanted to make me purposefully feel jealous. She expected to trigger me into saying something along the lines of, WTF, F that, you're mine, and I want you, not her. I realize this is manipulatory behavior, I told her, and she apologized. See next point. The deep reason why she acted this way to get attention. She explained to me that she has had deep issues with both her parents and past partners regarding not feeling loved / being ignored / being left alone. I was already aware of some stuff, but I hadn't realized the extent of it all. She explained some stuff that happened to her, and that she doesn't know how to cope with it. So sometimes she just gets too clingy, but other times she pulls SHT like this. She agreed to start therapy immediately to work on her issues. She had already looked into it on her own, and asked me to have a look at a couple of resumes of the therapists she liked the most. The dynamic with our friend. Since some of the stuff that happened didn't add up, I asked her point blank what her thoughts about the situation were. She told me that while it is true that she finds him to be an attractive guy, she perceived that as necessary, but not enough to consider him a potential partner, because she felt that, other than the sports side of things, they didn't have anything else in common that could click. She also told me that if she had anything in mind, she would have made a move on him on the occasions that they were at the gym or in competition without me. She also seemed to be aware that he finds her to be attractive in a she's pretty kind of way. In our conversation, I also opened up about my past and the way that stuff like this, even if more serious, has already hurt me and left me sensitive over these matters. She offered, while she starts her therapy, to give me space and try to control her clinginess to let me work my thoughts out about this. While I think what has happened isn't good at all, especially considering how early it happened in the relationship, I do believe that there may be a silver lining to it. Does this sound reasonable? TLDR. I had an open conversation about it with her, and realized the reasons for it were far deeper than I expected. She apologized and agreed to go to therapy to work on her issues, and we cleared up the friend dynamic. Comments. Comment 1. How hard up for companionship are you? Comment 2. Dating for a month, and already getting therapy to fix a relationship. If you stick, then you are both fools. Comment 3. OP is just a rebound, and this relationship will run for a year at max. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.